Annalyn here. Today I'm going to be watching Bambi from the point of view of wildlife biology students. Now I'm not ripping this movie because I think it's a terrible movie. I actually love Bambi. I have ever since I was a kid. I'm ripping it because... what was I gonna say? Movies like this cause a lot of misconceptions about animals and behavior, and we kind of take for granted. Well, of course, cartoons aren't real, but for people who don't study animals or behavior, they can't necessarily pick out real from fiction. I do love the ambience in this movie. It's so pretty. Owls are nocturnal. Great horns do nest in tree hollows. Whoa, there's a squirrel right above the owl nest. What? Dude, what are you doing? He's gonna eat you. Great horns are big enough to eat squirrels. Oh, the chipmunk. I blame this movie. When I was like 6 or 7, I actually believed chipmunks were young squirrels. Also, chipmunks don't nest in trees, they actually nest underground. Some brutal bird competition. Birds don't talk to other animals. They have really specific calls to differentiate between species. Squirrels and chipmunks are competitors. They would not share food like that. Owls, great horned owls also eat rabbits, so this is also not a very good idea. Oh my god, look at that face. He is in kill mode. He is going to eat something. So, white-tailed does don't make a bed with their newborn fawn, not right away. They'll actually move their fawn immediately after, call it dropping fawns. That's so to protect the fawn from predators, because predators will follow the scent, and a baby deer is a really easy snack. Bambi knows what's up. He's like, what's this big old owl doing in here? This is true. Deer do have to get up and walk right away, but they can't run or outrun predators very well, so they have to hide most of the time when the mother's away grazing, because they cannot walk very well. See, he's gonna eat someone. He's a living bird. He has to eat. And the Great Prince. Bucks have nothing to do with the fawns, even if it's their fawn. They have no parental instincts. That's all on the does. Possums can't hang upside down like that. They can use their tails to wrap around branches and help them climb, but they don't hang upside down. What was that face, though? Disney is kind of annoying. Whenever they have a movie about animals, they use licking as a sign of affection or romance. There's a lot of reasons animals lick, because they like the taste of something or they're grooming. Some animals do use it to form bonds, or bonds are formed in the act of grooming, but it's way more than just like a mother kissing the top of their child's head.
What did your father tell you this morning?
Rabbits are also polygamous, and the males don't help in raising the kids. Mothers of young rabbits don't lead the kids out of the den. By the time rabbits open their eyes and can hop around, they're actually old enough to be an adult. So, in rabbit terms, Thumper and his sisters are technically adults. This is true. Both wild and domesticated rabbits do this. It's basically like a call for attention in case there's a threat. Deer fawns are gonna be curious about rabbits and birds around them. They're gonna try to figure out what they are, and they might chase them around, but they won't actually play like this in the movie. They're going to play with other fawns. Wow, Thumper, you just abandoned him in the woods. This is mostly pretty accurate to how different species would react to weather patterns. Owls do not turn their head all the way around. The max is 270, about 3/4 of the way. A doe will wait until their fawn is strong enough to follow them before they lead them back to join the herd or to a new area. Up until then, the fawn spends most of the time hiding in a thick patch of grass or sticks while the doe grazes somewhere else. This is meant to lead predators away from her fawn. Ducks love the water. If water is in liquid form, they are going to swim in it. They don't care how cold it is.
No, not that green stuff.
Rabbits will eat their own droppings for maximum digestion efficiency, so I really don't think they're gonna care about the difference in taste between a blossom and a clover. Finally, Bambi is actually playing with other fawns, like he's supposed to. There are never this many bucks in a herd together. They do stay in separate herds from the does, but it's like a group of 4 or 5, not 20. They don't play fight like this either. I'm not sure if it's peak summer. They might not even have the velvet off their antlers yet. Whenever you fighting is kind of the last straw for animals. They'll display, they'll do warnings. Fighting is the last thing you want to do because it's so dangerous. You can lose an eye, you can get stabbed, you can break your neck, you can get locked together and starve. It's basically knives on your head. You're not gonna chase other kids with knives. This is actually a real thing. It's called stotting. It's a gait that's meant to show predators, I can stot like this. You don't want to waste your time hunting me. The funny thing is, mule deer do this. Whitetails do not. Deer don't stand at attention for an older buck. It's not the rut right now, so they wouldn't even care about dominancy. The character design of the prince is based on a buck in ruts. He has the extra fur around his neck and his antlers are sharpened and full. They don't look like this all year round. If they had their antlers, they would look more like the younger bucks. Deer don't really show respect. Like I said, if it's not the rut, bucks won't care about the other bucks they're hanging out with. When it is the rut, they're going to start fighting, and more dominant males are going to chase off the younger bucks. The point of being in a herd is having more eyes and ears available at all times, so the responsibility of warning about dangers falls to all the deer, not just the bucks. This is real. Deer will stop their hooves, just like rabbits thump, to warn of danger. If a fawn is old enough to follow their mother out into the field, they're going to run too. They're gonna know how to run from danger. The doe, and especially not the buck, they're not going to risk their lives and stay in the area when they know to run. This is more typical. There'll be mostly does, and the does will be sisters or mother and daughter. Maybe there'll be a young buck who is also a fawn. Winter is a really bad time for cervids in general. There's less food, so they're going to be weaker and more susceptible to disease and parasites and predation. With lots of snow buildup like this, it's going to make it easier for predators to hunt them because, like you see, deer are going to sink deeper into the snow because of their hooves, while animals like wolves and bobcats that can spread out their paws, they're going to run on the surface of the snow and be able to catch up easier. The scene with the ice is played off as cute and fun, but I've seen a lot of deer get stuck on a frozen lake or a stream, and if people don't help them, they probably end up trapped and die. Skunks do sleep in the winter The common word for it is hibernation, but hibernation is only one form of dormancy. Skunks will do a sort of dormancy called torpor. That's when they actually get up once in a while and walk around to get food. They don't sleep the entire winter. Animals don't pull their tails over their shoulder like a blanket, but they do curl up around them to keep warm. And all the deer are looking for food because it's winter and winter sucks. I actually love winter, but for a wild animal like a deer, winter probably sucks for them. Now this patch of cleared grass kind of looks suspicious. I'm wondering if the hunter was actually baiting deer. Now, Bambi came out in the 1940s, and we didn't have a lot of hunting regulations yet, so it's hard to say if this was actually illegal or not back then. It definitely is illegal, I think, in most places during hunting season today. A fawn would definitely be confused as to where their mother went. They wouldn't quite understand. And does that have their fawns killed by predators, sometimes they will stay near the carcass because they just don't understand that their baby is gone. Animals deal with death a lot more than humans do, so it might be confusing and sad for them, but they're able to bounce back for it a lot better than we can. And the buck, a fawn who lost his mother, he would immediately go to other does in his herd. The buck still wouldn't care. He wouldn't help him at all. There's a kind of a myth that all animals, get together in the spring, but it's not because it's a new year and flowers are blooming and everything's pretty and all animals are just in that mood. It's based on gestation period mostly, how long it takes for baby birds to hatch or for young to be born. To ensure the young's survival the best, animals are going to try to align the birth of their young with the prime time of feeding. So birds who have relatively short gestation periods, they're going to mate in the spring, and in late spring their young are going to hatch and they're going to have lots of insects, lots of seeds to eat and grow fast, but that's not the case for every animal. Deer do not have antlers in the spring. I'm not sure about the summer dates, but I know they don't have antlers yet in the spring. They shed them in the winter, and maybe they're just starting to regrow them, but they definitely wouldn't have full-on antlers like this. Although Bambi rubbing his antlers on a tree, that is real.
What's the matter with them?
Why are they acting that way?
Why, don't you know?
Hormones. This is actually a pretty good description. Animals going crazy, not specifically in the spring, but at the time of their breeding season, the males will get crazy on their hormones. The change of chemicals in their brain, it's going to make them more aggressive, more energetic, just more crazy to help them breed as much as possible, basically.
Well, it's not gonna happen to me.
Says the rabbit. So this whole scene with Thumper and Flower, females mostly do not chase after males. The males chase after the females. And they would not be shy about being around a female. They would be chasing the female, hoping to get laid, basically. I hate this design for the rabbit. It's so feminized, I guess. Like, you have to make a chest, you have to make long lashes. Those claws, though, rabbits have serious claws on their front and hind legs, so The rut is not in spring for whitetails. I do like the scene because this is what happens a lot to deer. Ornaments, what they call antlers, their prime focus is as a display, and they don't really have any practical use. They use them as a display, and they use them to fight, but fighting reduces their chances of survival. So fancy ornaments like antlers or long feathers like in peacocks, they're really detrimental to male survival, and they often will get caught in branches or fencing. There's actually an extinct animal called the Irish elk who's famous for having these gigantic antlers. You can look up a picture and they're absolutely huge. And one theory about their extinction is their antlers just got too big. It was so impractical, but they were being chosen based on the bigger and bigger antlers. Females have to be very, very picky about the males they choose. Males will follow a herd of does and try to fight off other males, but I don't think if a female doesn't want to breed with a male, it's not going to happen. In the rut, in the fall, not in the spring, if Bambi was with does, there would definitely be another male, especially if he was invading another male's territory. There would definitely be another male that wants to fight him. I love this scene. It's another one that's really artistic. Of course, the fight is a little embellished to make it look cooler. The 1940s were a period of time where there was a change in how wildlife was managed. Up until this point, there were no bag limits, and any bags or seasons that were developed, there was no one enforcing those rules. White-tailed deer were already kind of endangered. They had been practically wiped out on the East Coast. So there was pressure against all hunting. This is real. Certain kinds of pheasants won't flush out of the brush until the hunter's almost right on top of them. Hunting hounds, I don't know about the 40s, but I know today you can have dogs fetch game for you, like ducks and pheasants, but you definitely cannot let your dog attack an animal. There's actually a law in the Hunter's Guide for Minnesota that if a dog is attacking a bear or a deer, other people have the right to shoot the dog to protect the animal because it is deemed unethical to stick your dogs on game. I also really hate this thing about the damsel in distress. If you want to do it with humans, fine, but deer don't act like this. A buck is not going to charge in to protect a doe. They're going to run, but if a doe is cornered by dogs, she is going to be the one to fight the dogs and try to save herself because it's her life in danger. The deer may warn their herd about dogs coming, but they're not going to fight a dog and endanger their own life unless it's a doe for their fawn or a doe or a buck for themselves. Forest fires are another kind of symbol of mankind's destruction to wildlife and nature. The big danger is forest fire, and it sweeps through and destroys everything. And this got a really bad misunderstanding of the public that fires were always these horrible, horrible things and no one should ever set a forest on fire. But the fires are really important for forests because they do destroy a lot, but they open up gaps and let new generations of trees grow, and they also create habitat. Like I said, deer are edge habitats animals, and there's a lot of game birds too, like the pheasants, and forest fires are used to create habitat to expand because in a clear field, if it's left unmanaged for a long time, eventually the forest is going to creep in and take up, the trees are going to take up that space in the field. The deer and the quail and the grouse are going to lose habitat. Forest fires, forest cutting, those are two important ways to maintain habitat. It is kind of sad because in forest fires, there's some species that lose their habitat, but then there's some species that gain habitat. Nature is all about that give and take. So to have this image of forest fires always being this horrible, disruptive thing is really not helpful, especially for wildlife managers. So one thing about does, first-time mothers will typically have one fawn. Raising a fawn, that's a lot of work, and first-time mothers, they're less experienced, they're typically smaller, less healthy than older does. It might be a evolutionary adaptation that first-time mothers typically have one fawn, and then really healthy older does typically have two, maybe even three. So I like how this scene insinuates that Feline is not a first-time mom. So that was Bambi. It's always really fun to watch it, to see the artwork and the music. It's obviously not a movie meant to educate people about wildlife, but people have taken things from the movie and applied it to real life, which is really not a good idea. I'm still just a student. I am nowhere claiming to be an expert on animal behavior, and there's probably some things I may have gotten wrong. So the point of this isn't really to educate you guys, it's for me to point out stuff that might not be right and for you guys to go and do good research from good sources and try to pick up the stuff on your own.